Hello friends, and welcome to this video class. In this video class, let us learn something about the process of communication. The word communication comes from the Latin root communis, and the verb root in Latin is communicare. Now what is this communis? Communis means public, common or general. And communicare means making known, making it public or communicating. In other words, communication means making known something to others or communicating with others. Of course, psychologists would say that we need to communicate with ourselves. However, the scope of this video is interpersonal communication or group communication. How does the process of communication take place? To communicate, there need to be two important agencies. The first one is the one who communicates. The second one is the one who receives the communication or the receiver. We can also call them as sender and receiver or communicator and audience. So these two important agencies are of utmost importance in every communication. Second, there needs to be a message in every communication. Without the message, you cannot really have communication. So the message is given by the communicator to be received by the receiver. In other words, sender sends the message and the receiver receives the message. So we need to have three important aspects for the completion of communication. The first one is the sender, the second one is the message, and the third one is the receiver. When the sender sends the message and the receiver receives the message, the process of communication is complete. Coming to message, what is a message? In normal understanding, we would say the message is verbal message. So the message is something that we speak, something that we communicate through our words. Do you think only that as the message? Not really. As the psychologists and thinkers would say, even the researchers have researched that much of our communication happens non-verbally, which means verbally we communicate much less than our non-verbal communication. That means we communicate a lot through our gestures, postures, body language, expressions, and less perhaps through our words. In 1970s, there was a research which said that only 7% of our communication is verbal communication. 93% of our communication is non-verbal communication. Of course, much debate has gone on, and today the researchers would say this theory of only 7% as the verbal communication may be a little too exaggerated. However, there is no debate that most of our communication happens non-verbally. That means through our body language and expressions and gestures, postures, eye contact, and so on. So the message need not be only verbal message. A message can also be non-verbal. Coming back to the question of the process of communication. Now the sender sends this message, which means the sender encodes this message. Now what is this encoding? What is the meaning of encoding? Encoding is nothing but putting the message into the right medium. If the sender does not put the message into the right medium, the message may be lost. The message may not be received properly by the receiver. And that's why it is important that the sender or the communicator encodes the message properly and puts it into the right medium. What is this right medium? In mass communication, of course, the medium would be, let's say, TV or radio or newspaper or some of those channels. But when we communicate, the encoding would be through the medium of our own voice. That could be a verbal medium or non-verbal medium. This is an important step. If you do not put the message into the right medium, the message may be lost. The device that helps the message to be communicated is known as the channel. Now, in mass communication, this channel could be a television, a radio, or a newspaper. But when we speak about group communication or interpersonal communication, the channel would be our own voice and our own body language. Of course, sometimes in group communication, it is possible that we use public address system. So that public address system could be the channel. But most of the time when we do interpersonal communication, our voice, our body language, our expression itself becomes the proper channel. That means when we speak, our voice must be loud, clear, and distinct. Many times we think that we communicate properly, but it is possible that our voice may not be clear, loud, and distinct, and much of our message may be lost in the process. And that's why the channel that we use in this process, our own voice, must be clear, distinct, and loud. Then there is the receiver. The receiver is the audience or someone who receives the message. We cannot communicate in void. To communicate, there should be another person or a group of persons. Even in radio and television, where we do not see the audience, we must assume the audience in our mind and communicate to them. So, for communication, audience is very important. Without the receiver or without the audience, the communication is incomplete. Now, this audience or this receiver has to decode the message. Now, what is this decoding? Decoding is nothing but giving meaningful interpretation to the message. When I communicate something, the person or the audience must understand it properly. That means he or she has to interpret it properly. And this whole process of interpreting the message is known as decoding. The ultimate aim of the process of communication is that the receiver decodes the message as intended by the sender or the communicator. If the audience or the receiver is not able to decode the message properly, the message may be misrepresented or misunderstood. The receiver decodes the message holistically, which means not just what you say, what you speak, but your gestures, postures, your body language, your expressions, and everything put together is decoded by the audience or the receiver. So, when the receiver or the audience decodes the message, it is the entire process of your communication which is decoded. I will speak something about this process in my next video. There is another factor that can hamper the process of communication. That is known as noise. What is noise? Well, all of us know what noise is, and we can differentiate between noise and sound. There are many meanings of noise, but generally noise is something that disturbs us, disturbs our peace. But In communication, when we speak about noise, noise is something that affects or disturbs the process of communication. Because of this noise, the receiver may not be able to get the right message sent by the communicator. Now, there are two types of noise in communication. The first one is the physical noise or the device noise, or it could also be known as the channel noise. The second one is the semantic noise. Now, what is this physical noise or the channel noise? Now, physical noise or the channel noise is technical noise or technical disturbance. When I speak over the public address system, if there is a technical glitch, if there is a problem in the system, the communication is disturbed. But let us say when I speak to the audience and I use only my voice, if my voice is not loud enough, it is not audible, even that is known as physical noise or channel noise. Now, what is this semantic noise? Semantic means the meaning making process. That's the meaning of semantic, meaning making process. Now, when the audience is not able to make meaning out of what you have said, they are not able to make the right interpretation of what you are trying to say, then such noise is known as a semantic noise. Let me give you an example. Let us say I am speaking some complex theories. Now, the audience is not able to grasp what I am trying to say, because maybe my level of understanding is slightly more complex than the level of understanding of the audience. So the audience is not able to grasp it. And that is when there comes what is known as a difference in the semantic axis. The axis of understanding of the audience and the axis of my communication is far and wide. There's a big gap, big difference between these semantics. And this semantic axis has to be bridged. And how does this bridging of semantic axis take place? It takes place when, let us say, I come down to their level and make them understand this complex theory. And the way I communicate, they are able to understand and grasp. That is when the semantic axis is bridged and they are able to understand, and this semantic noise also goes away. And when this noise is not there, the communication becomes quite effective. Finally, just to summarize, for any communication, we require two important agencies. One is the communicator or the sender. The second one is the receiver or the audience. Communication takes place when there is a message to be communicated. The sender encodes the message and the receiver decodes that message. When the receiver decodes the message as intended by the sender, the process of communication becomes very effective. For this, the noise has to be avoided. What is noise? The noise could be physical or channel noise or the semantic noise. When such noise is removed, the message is communicated and the audience or the receiver is able to decode the message, and the process of communication becomes really complete. See you in the next video.